Hey there, when you're doing your design work, how do you do it, right? Let's say you're not, as a developer or an architect, if you're not coding, how do you go about doing it? Here's one way I do it, and that's worked very well for me. I think I may have shared a post about it where I mentioned it quickly in a couple of lines, and this is the longer version of it as a video. So here's how I do it, right? 9 out of 10 times, I'm not sitting in front of my machine. Almost 10 out of 10 times, I think, right, when I'm doing this design. Because I feel like one, it doesn't add any value to be spending the time when you're in front of a machine. I could be doing something else that I need the machine for, like coding, for instance, right? But if I'm doing this design work, at least the initial design or even the second phase of this design, I feel like I don't want to be sitting in front of the machine for two reasons. One is it is actually a distraction looking at something, a screen or whatever it is that's on the screen, text, an IDE, editor, all of it feels like a distraction to me. It comes in the way of my thought process. And two, I want to use that time, let's say you spend an hour walking or running or whatever it is that you do. Running might be tricky. I actually walk, so it's quieter. There's not a lot of noise associated with the activity of walking, so I'm able to do this. So I think about it. I do all of that design for the most part when I'm actually walking, right? And I record it into a voice memo. But even if you don't do it, if you want to record it differently, that's all right. But you can sort of shut everything else out. But just, when you're walking either in a loop or you're on a treadmill, whatever it is. So you don't need I would imagine, I don't have a treadmill. I just walk either outside in the normal days. In the new normal, I'm just walking inside the house. When I'm doing that, I just follow the same pattern, right? It's just do several laps. We got like 80 steps, I think, per lap. So I have to do a lot of it to get to at least even a 10,000. So it gives me a good 60 to 90 minute window when I can actually think with no other distractions, right? So I spend that time doing the design. And the design, when I say design, I'm using the word loosely. It could be one of many things. Sometimes it's just a high-level thought process which translates to a requirement. It may not even be a requirement at that point. Other times I may have a requirement in mind, or I may have it jotted down someplace like paper doc, but I'm taking the requirement a bit further and trying to draw out the flow of events from a user experience standpoint. So you can think of it like UX design. Whether it's an app or a UI page, I'm just thinking about it in my mind. Hey, I know that we have these pages, we have these buttons. Where should this new service or enhancement or feature, whatever it is, what is the starting point? Which page is it? And on that page, where would it be located? Is it to the left, to the right, the top, bottom, whether it's web or mobile? And then you go from there, right? I typically record that into a voice memo. I just number them sequentially, so I know I have a place to look back on. I haven't found a way to sort of transpile, if that's the right word, that recording to text. If I find a tool that does it, that'll be awesome. So I don't even have to go back and give it another listen, because sometimes it just takes the same amount of time and you feel like you could do it in a more productive manner. And so that's in terms of design, right? But what if it's APIs? Whether you believe it or not, the conversations feature that we do have on mobile and the web, it's all homegrown, right? We had a set of requirements, and it was the best way to go about doing that was to just build it, right? Build it in-house using our platforms and whatnot, right? So it's actually a pretty decently functioning feature, given the list amount of things we've gotten done. Eventually, I think we did an pretty good job actually. So for that feature, we had a number of APIs. Forgetting the UI, the API design, I remember vividly. It was the days where we could all go out whenever we wanted to. I was walking on North Star Boulevard, the one right outside my house, and the entire UI API design, we have a number of APIs, almost to the JSON level, but of course you can document the JSON when you're walking. But I had a good sense for what the APIs, what the route should be, how many of them needed to be there, what sequence possibly. It was like I was walking almost for over a half a day on that day. I remember vividly. It was a beautiful day, lovely weather. It's like 60s or something. And I was able to get this done. The important thing is you need to either record that into a voice memo right away, or you want to do whatever it is that you want to do to not forget. Because as good as this approach is, one aspect of it that's very important is if you do not translate that thought process into something that's recorded, whether it's a voice memo, whether it's you recording yourself into a video or documenting or typing it, whatever works for you, you have to do one of it. Because if you do not do it, or at least in my case, if I don't do it and I sleep and I get up, wake up the next day, I'm now going to remember like half or almost 80% of what I documented. Because when you're thinking about something, you have the thought process, it keeps flowing and you want to record it. Right or wrong, you may change the approach, but you certainly want to document that so you don't lose what you did. Otherwise, that would have been a wasted half a day essentially, right? So if you haven't tried this approach, give it a shot, see if it works for you. You may come up with a combination or a version of this that works for you. And if it does work, and if it saves you time, so when you're sitting in front of the machine, you're actually literally doing the work, as a coder or as an architect, doing something that requires a compiler or an interpreter or a machine or an IDE or a database or some process or a daemon running on your machine, then I think you would have saved this time. It actually works very well for me. Thanks.